we're ready. So the roll call shows that we're everyone that Miriam Kaplan is here. And oh yeah, John isn't here. So the next item is the oral communications.
Oh.
Anybody have anything to offer?
Thank you. I do. My name is Becky Steinbrunner. Let me put this camera down. I have other things to say, but I'll address them later in the agenda. I think it's appropriate for this group to be aware that that the county of Santa Cruz is updating their general plan amendment, and since that was done last in 1994, there is new legislation that requires water districts to supply to the county what's called a water availability assessment. And it's signed into law in 2001 under SB 610 and SB 221. Now, a lot of the wording in that those two statutes has to do with development, large development of 500 units or more, having to verify that there's water for the development for 20 years. But part of those statutes is that when a general plan amendment is updated, that the water districts that serve the areas, and so this would be one of them, must also comply with the law and submit a water assessment. And so they must submit an urban water management plan, a current version of capital improvement plan, description of sources of water by right and by contract. And I think it's of note that Soquel Creek Water District has junior rights to the Prisma Aquifer and no rights to Soquel Creek. And until Santa Cruz City amends its water rights for place of use, no water could come from the San Lorenzo River. It must also include the quantity of surface water purveyed in the last 5 years, the quantity of groundwater purveyed in the last 5 years, a description of all proposed additional sources with estimated dates of availability and quantities, and finally a description of the total number of customers currently served, identify them by category of user and by amount of water supplied to each category. So I just wanted to make this group aware of that, and thank you.
I wasn't interesting. I wasn't aware that you said Santa Cruz City, the Soquel Water District.
We don't.
We don't.
It's the County of Santa Cruz general plan. So all of the unincorporated areas of the county of Santa Cruz. Yeah, I'm sorry if I said city. It's the County of Santa Cruz. Yeah.
That would be a new thing. I was just talking to John Ricker yesterday and he didn't even mention it. So, okay, anyone else?
You guys addressed most of that through the urban water management plan that you had to already 5 years. And
Yeah.
it sounds like most of that's in there, but
Yes.
I'm not positive, but I was just wondering.
We discussed it at the last board meeting.
We did.
We did.
Yeah. So, yes, we did, but yeah, I think that will undoubtedly come up during those, that contract. The research for that.
So when are you doing your next urban water management plan? Do you guys have a schedule?
2020.
Every 2020?
Every 5 years.
Okay. So it's 2020, that's the next one.
It'll be called the 2020, and I believe it has to be done by 2021.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so anybody else? Okay, we're on to, I don't have the brochure anymore, but there is going to be a symposium at the city of Capitola, is the meeting room. Oh, Becky.
Here, I have it from this morning.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to print some more. Oh, I printer's but anyway, it might be worth 1, 10 to noon. Just
It's got a great list of speakers, let me just say.
They are our own favorite speakers.
Oh, must
It's-
be someone special.
it's-
Yeah.
3 ladies, myself, and Heidi Luckenbach from the City of Santa Cruz, and Darcy Pruitt from the MGA.
Sponsored by the League of Women Voters.
Yeah, I think it'll probably be, it just came out, the notice came out today, so I'm sure it'll be on the website, the Soquel Water District's website too. Okay, so we're on to 3.1. Update on the surface water purchase pilot project and the city's status on its evaluation of its water augmentation. It's a long list, that's 3.1.
Yeah, it is, and Christine and Melanie and I will tag team on that. So since we've reported to the board too, how much water we've transferred since December. And in December, we transferred 8.4 roughly million gallons. January, 8.9 million gallons, February, 8.7, and then in March, 13.5 million gallons. So total about over 40 million. And that is to serve the test area west of Soquel Creek. And we still have a couple more weeks. It has to end in April due to the water rights.
3 more weeks.
And
Oh,
then
really? Oh, it
weeks.
went through April.
Right, April 30th is when that ends. And then we will, plan to get all the post-transfer data set up and monitor for 3 months after April. And then we'll share with the board and this committee when those results come in. And we're clearly looking for water quality compatibility. And so far, we didn't see any issues with lead and copper or other metals, but of course, transferring to a different source will sometimes trigger that, so we want to keep an eye on that when that change in water use comes. We did also transfer 131,000 gallons in March to Pure Source Water because they had a big leak. I don't know if they're still transferring, or did they get a hold of that?
The intertie's still open.
It's still open, okay.
Oh, hi, you're not late.
Come on in.
Hi.
We're in 3.1.
The transfer in the earlier months was a little low because the city asked us to hold back on our purchase due to fish flow requirements. And so we're, depending on the rainfall and availability, that source is not as, reliable. Sometimes we have to cut back to meet the fish flow requirements. So, but generally speaking, the infrastructure is working well. The intertie opens and closes based on a tank call to fill. We are planning for next winter to expand the area and bring more water to sub-area 1 and 2. So,
Oh, it's been expanded.
yeah.
Oh, is that the last year of the?
Right, and then we'll have to renegotiate with the city to see if we can continue to purchase water from them after that.
Is most of the renegotiation sort of tied up in legal arguments about water rights and things like that, or is it more just availability and rain?
It's probably more on their cost of service.
Because it won't be a pilot project anymore.
No.
So they'll have to have a sort of financial analysis of rates, so to speak, for giving you water, and they'll have to meet some new standard, I'm assuming. Okay.
Yeah, right now they gave us a research rate, which was very favorable.
Right, but then they'll give you the legal rate.
They have a Prop 218 classification for a municipality.
Okay.
Any questions on that you guys have?
Where are service areas 1 and 2?
Oh, sorry about that. Service Area 1 starts on 41st Avenue, and it goes to 1 and 2 are sort of interconnected, so
Okay.
I would say all the way to Aptos Creek.
Oh, okay.
Essentially the buffer there. Sea Cliff is
Okay.
sub-area 1.
So
And then
Capitola,
Capitola.
yeah,
Yeah, the flats.
Okay.
The flats of Rio Del Mar are sub-area
there we go,
2.
okay.
some
So
of
is that like
Okay.
That's three.
25% of your service area, 50%?
More like 50.
Here it
Yeah,
is.
about
There it
half.
is. Thank
Oh,
you.
that's pretty
1
good.
and 2.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Aptos Creek is probably the best.
And
Boundary.
then coastal all the way down there.
And sub-area 1 is Soquel Creek, right?
Well, it's kind of the dividing line between the two sub-areas.
It's more Park Avenue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have a booster
Oh, yeah,
station right
it's
on
Capitola and
on
Soquel.
McGregor. So that sub-area 1 and 2 should draw about 800 acre-feet, which will exceed the 300 acre-feet this next winter that we're the maximum that we can draw.
Right. And so that's further away from the source. So you're still gonna go through and flush all, well, you flushed, I thought you flushed sub-area 1 already,
Right.
right? Okay, and 2?
Most of
No,
Sure.
yeah, 2 has not been completed yet.
Okay. Sorry, I remember my neighbor.
Yeah, but when you bring that up, that it's a bigger area and it will sit longer. And so we're gonna have to keep an eye on disinfection byproducts. Because there's elevated tanks in that area that are in a higher zone and traditionally the older water age.
So would you, if the water got transferred, would you store it in those tanks then? Is that it? Or you would do everything?
Yeah, we still have to
Usually do-
store it in our tanks
Mhm.
for fire protection. We can't turn off the tanks. They need to be there for fire protection. And what we found too is over the last winter is that the city, you know, can say we gotta stop for some reason, and so our sources need to be ready to pick up. And because the demand will exceed the 300 acre-feet, there's gonna be times where our wells are gonna come on.
Mhm.
And so we'll have to manage it that way.
So you're gonna talk about the city's evaluation of its water supply augmentation plan?
Yeah, we can give a quick update on that. That's when I went and got my papers. I know we had a public outreach standing committee this morning, and went over, grabbed this, and I thought it was informational. And one of the things was, they said, you know, people don't always use the Sentinel anymore as a source of information. But this was a really good article that was written last Monday. The Santa Cruz Water Commission and the Water Supply Advisory Committee had a joint meeting, and the city staff and consultants kind of gave an overview of their latest efforts. And I think Jessica York did a nice job in summarizing some of the main points related to where they're at. So they're currently still in evaluation. The city, Santa Cruz kind of calls what their efforts at this point are still proof of concept. Their project is not yet defined. They're still evaluating the feasibility of in lieu as well as aquifer storage and recovery wells. And what they're looking at in their efforts is identifying really what their shortfall is, and based upon their immediate shortfall and then their long-term shortfall, what kind of capital improvement and water supply planning do they need to do. And their efforts right now are focusing more on a short-term shortfall, and then they're gonna be reevaluating some of their demand projections, their water supply status through the urban water management plan that's gonna be coming out, and then they're gonna look at what they call their long-term solution.
So were they tentatively sort of thinking that they need less water than they thought in the past, and that they may not be pushing as hard on long-term water supply as they were in the past?
There's-
And then they're gonna allocate some of that money to just fixing regular pipelines?
Infrastructure.
Yeah.
From a financial standpoint, they had to kind of do that balance.
Yeah, I was wondering.
And that's kind of what came out of here. And so they still are trying to plan. They think that their demand projections are gonna be slower than they originally
Mhm.
thought in the urban water management plan, but they recognize that that shortfall is not forever, and so they keep calling that like a short term and a long term.
Right.
And they phased it, and so there was kind of in their PowerPoint presentation last time, they had like phase 1 water supply, augmentation, and then phase too, so. What their findings were really quickly on this, and I can open it up, because they're not here to speak for themselves, but I can at least summarize. I think the main points that Rosemary hit on that were captured in this paper. Where's page 2? I keep, oh, here it is, this is page 2. There were some bullet points, so, during the evening's comprehensive summary of the steps, the main points that were highlighted included that in no case can Santa Cruz consistently provide enough of the annual supply directly to Soquel Creek Water District's customers to meet the 1,500 acre-foot annual supply that the district would need, according to Gary Fisk. And were the city to provide some supply to Soquel Creek, city water costs are not likely to be cheaper than that of the Pure Water Soquel project using their preliminary estimates.
Did they give you guys an actual statement of what the supply cost might be long-term? Did they give you an estimate?
Yeah, and so we did that back in December, and we worked with the city staff, and it's actually here on our website if you want to look at that.
And that actually comes from the city versus Soquel Creek.
Right.
Uh-huh.
This is called under the community water plan. Here are community water plan documents, cost considerations for water supply options within the community water plan. And here are the costs for how we evaluated the project. The project as a whole, these were costs originally, and because at the time that we were generating the supply options for the community water plan, the source documents always trying to point back to where was these costs coming from were done from different reports, and so they had kind of a baseline different cost. So the costs in different reports were all done at different times. You can see in 2017, 2013, and 2018 dollars, the costs were spread from 68 million all the way up to 422 million plus conveyance. That didn't include like all the different partners or potential cost sharing. And then what we did just for parity is we brought all of the costs to $2022, which is midpoint of construction. And then we looked at unit cost of water that included also operating costs for staffing, power, and maintenance. And through those costs, these were the dollar amounts. So Pure Water Soquel was going to be projected to be about $4,600 per acre foot. This is in 2022 dollars without grant funding. Surface water transfer, we're looking at $6,100 to $11,500 an acre foot, and that was based on the capital improvements that needed to be done, that we would have to, that would either we would pay into that as a capital project, or they would roll that into the unit cost of water that they sold to us.
So when you come to negotiations, that might be discussed more or less.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Okay.
And then the deep water desal costs, obviously, those came from deep water desal. And then there is some things in here, and I'm not sure if, yes, here is one related to what you had just brought up, related to the actual cost. If we went from a short-term research project cost to a long-term cost, right here we used the rate that was for either single family or municipal customers. They have different classes. We're an outside of the city area. That cost range, if we were to buy water, say extend the surface water 300 acre feet per year outside of a pilot project, the cost would be just from using their Prop 218 rates, $5,400 to $6,270 per acre foot. And then that would be something that we would put into it, a 30-year agreement that we would want to be guaranteed that volume of water if it was replacing a more reliable water supply project.
I think one thing too that was presented by the city is that they're under both circumstances, they're planning to do upgrades to Grand Hill treatment plant to help treat turbid water. They're not gonna pass on any upgrades there. They recognize that it's an old facility that needs some upgrades, so they're gonna push forward with that.
So they're gonna go forward with upgrading their surface water treatment for quality and quantity, so
Right.
they'll get some additional quantity maybe, and then, because they can treat more turbid water, and then they'll have better quality.
Right.
Okay.
They're still on the same schedule that I think they were on when the WASAC completed, which is by the end of 2020, they will recommend to the city council on what water supply option they want to continue to pursue,
Mhm.
and then take that to environmental review.
And that'll be the sort of long-term situation they're thinking about. Yeah, okay. So they definitely won't know about treating secondary wastewater to higher standards until after, at some point in 2020, the city.
For their
For their
solution.
use and their thoughts.
Well, as part of their water supply augmentation, so this is their handout that they just passed out, the recycled water and desalination are still two elements
Mhm.
that are within theirs. I think, I don't mean to speak for them, but, you
Yeah.
know, based on what they've brought to their water commission and their council, back at the end of last year, they are moving towards tabling desal. They are not moving forward really with a lot more evaluation efforts on desal. On November 27th, 2018, they did that. What they did do though is they did recommend to continue to move forward with a treatment of recycled water.
Mhm.
They went through their own recycled water feasibility study, and through that effort, there was some preferred recycled water projects that they may want to pursue. One of them was to upgrade their tertiary facility that's down at the Santa Cruz wastewater treatment plant and expand that to create a fill station.
What's a fill station?
A fill station
Oh,
would be for construction water.
I see, okay.
That could be used, you know, to
Right, just
dust
for
control
trucks and,
and
yeah,
stuff
all
like
that.
that. And then irrigation of a park as a
Mhm.
nearby. And then another recommendation was to expand more tertiary water to potentially go up to UCSC or others. So
And that would be for your plants and stuff?
yeah.
Okay.
So they are moving forward with tertiary level treatment down, yeah.
Okay.
What else, you mentioned that they would, so that means that they are moving closer to going to an agreement about providing tertiary water for the Pure Water Soquel project?
I think I think that is, they are still, they have from, in terms of collaboration, I think we're collaborating a lot with surface water transfer, we're collaborating a lot with the recycled water or the secondary effluent. This was, where did the secondary?
It's over here on the side.
So the secondary water, 2016, they provided the district a letter of interest. 2017, we entered into a memorandum of understanding, MOU? Yeah, an MOU with them about doing, getting secondary water and then treating it. And then, right after we approved the project, that was kind of a condition, was once we approve a project, and then we would enter into a project agreement. So we are working on a project agreement of securing that source water.
So they might actually enter into a project giving you tertiary treated water to some extent. They sort it at that level right now?
No, what we would do is, we would take secondary water from them,
Mhm.
and then we would treat it to tertiary level down at Santa Cruz wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
And then pipe tertiary water over to a satellite purification facility, purify that water. And that right now is cited for Chanticleer and Soquel Avenue. And then that purified water would go out to recharge wells.
Okay, so you did tertiary at the plant and then
Mhm.
beyond tertiary outside of that. And then would their operators be running the tertiary plant, the city Santa Cruz operators?
They have expressed interest that they would like to operate the tertiary.
Tertiary, okay.
They do have a small scale tertiary there. They use about, I think, I'm not quite sure what the volume is, but they have a tertiary level sand media filtration. That's their on site that they use for in-plant wash water uses.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But anyways, if you guys wanna see this, so this is water that was collected yesterday, this is secondary water. So this is the water that goes out to the ocean, 8 million gallons a day. It's treated, goes out, and then this is from their small scale tertiary that they have there on site. They treat it to this level.
Can someone convert 8 million gallons per day to acre feet per year?
24?
Yeah, times 3, about 325, 851 gallons.
A million gallons is about 3 acre feet roughly. More than enough.
Yep.
Yeah. Gotta remember, it's about what the whole county uses, right?
Yeah, minus evaporation and
Besides that,
absorption.
yeah.
People with septic.
Yeah.
Yeah, septic.
So, yeah, so that's this, you know, we are working with the city on their evaluation of what they're doing and how that can still fit into our community.
Any questions?
Does that tie in with their city's, what's it, notice to proceed with exploring water rights changes? I don't know exactly what it's called.
Mhm.
So that's all tied in with this, their evaluation of the augmentation? Okay,
Yes,
Notice of intent.
notice of intent, yeah.
so they put that out for a change in place of use.
Okay.
They're doing their environmental review
Like
on
December or something like that, yeah.
that. I don't have a status update on that, do you guys?
I know.
No, I keep saying they're getting very close, but not quite there. I think there's a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross. to get that final.
One thing that I could maybe provide an update to you guys on is the city's ASR test that they're doing over in Research Park near FedEx. They have a well that, for the last couple of months, they've been doing 3 different stages of injection recharge testing with surface water. And the first test was it a one-day recharge, and then I think 2 days rest, and then a day of extraction, and then they did a 7-day recharge with a 2-week storage, and then a 7-day extraction, and then now they just finished a month-long of storage, of injection, and then they're gonna let it sit and store it for 2 months. And then they'll go and see how it responds to 30 days extraction, recovery, we call it. So we've been coordinating with them on operational issues and monitoring the different aquifer units that they're recharging.
And that's one of the scenarios they sort of have as a preferred scenario, because they can use their
For that.
existing infrastructure and just tweak things a little bit, so to speak, for additional supply.
Right, they can't use their, they can use their existing supply, but they'll, in order to make it work, they need to install 6 or so new ASR wells with iron and manganese treatment
Right.
facilities, so it's not a insignificant effort
I don't know how
to
many.
do that.
So the triangles on the map are actually reflect the number of wells they have to place.
Right.
If not there, some,
Right.
I didn't know.
I think they may look at some of the Bells wells too, is that what they said?
I think they're gonna maybe shift a little further
Yeah.
south.
Did y'all go over previously their Monday night meeting?
Mhm.
You did that, okay. Good game.
What we went over, Ron, in case you wanted to show the chart, was we read the highlights from the article where they're quoting from Gary Fissett that there was not enough water at times. We didn't show.
I think the chart's informative. I really think that gets to the science, if we can pull that up. So Gary Fiss is the city's surface water modeler. And what he has a proprietary model called Confluence. And what it does is it looks at, in a very small time frame, what water is available, because they're just, they're maxing out everything they can. And what water is available first, what they have to give to fish, or what they think they have to give to fish, the agreement's not settled. Then next layer, I think the way they explained it, is to their people, yeah. And then what they want to put in the ground to store, so that's the 3rd level. And we're at the end of the train, we're 4th if there's any water left over. And they want to solve their problem. They've been very forthright about that. And so they ran this model, we've been working with them, and this is the results of it. And it's complicated, but I think this is the right crew to present it. Have you seen it yet, Larry?
I don't think so.
You don't see it? Okay. So this is a presentation we gave like the other night, and we included this in there. So there it is. So what this is, let me walk you through it. So
I have seen that chart, yeah.
You have?
Yeah, that was at the board meeting.
Okay, was that, yeah, presented.
That's good.
So what you have here then is, down the far left where it says flows, those are different climate models. So historical is just what you think it is, historical. The GFDL is another climate model. The next one is another one. And the catalog climate model is what the MGA is using, okay? So before we get into the numbers, don't worry about the numbers. Now the demand is basically the long-term demand, the 3.2 billion gallons, and then there's a shorter-term demand. Their demand has not responded the way they had estimated. So they've got longer-term and short-term demands, the way I describe it. That's on the left. And then across the top, the two big categories are without Graham Hill being upgraded, so it's current treatment capacity. And the other one is when they do upgrade it for quantity and quality, I think, as you said, Ken. And then in the middle there is, and where it's highlighted in yellow is, could they provide, what percentage of the time could they provide 1,500 acre feet? And so you can see that it's none of the time, and they could provide all of it, and some of the time it's none of it. And then, but, so that, you know, goes to this process can't solve the entire problem. Now what is hopeful is that 300 acre feet, what we're modeling now, is available, at least in some of the models, you know, from 100% down to 0% of the time. So there's some hope there in the approach we've been taking. Now, the other thing is, I don't know if you read the article in there, that was printed in the article, but the component to this is Rosemary said she doesn't believe this water would be any cheaper. In fact, it might be more, especially with grants, of course. But, so, the water's not enough to solve the whole problem. There may be some, looks like there will be some available a fair amount of the time. Now, will it be cheaper? Apparently, it doesn't appear to be by what they're saying. However, what we're of the belief of is at least some water, even if it is a little bit more costly, is at least worth considering because it provides a certain reliability, right? You have more sources, and so again, you're diversifying your portfolio, so to speak. So any questions on that table? Because this was like a really crucial piece that I think a lot of people who thought river transfers or whatever could solve it. This is the data, this is the science.
I think that's just great information for everybody, you know, here and in Santa Cruz about the economics of it. And I think that just sheds a lot of light on it. So,
Yeah.
and it gives you the reliability and the economics, which is great. So I think that's real important information to get out to whoever would be interested, because I think it's one of the most important pieces in terms of people trying to make a decision of which way to go long term.
Yeah, it's kind of a linchpin piece.
Our public outreach standing committee today talked
Mhm.
a little bit about this, and one of our public members recommended creating some infographics.
Mhm.
So we are going to try to kind of wrap this information and work with the city and make sure that we're, you know, displaying their information right.
Yeah, we were very appreciative of this. We've asked for it for a while. Takes a while to get it all in there. There's a lot behind this chart.
No, that's really important information.
Yeah.
This is also reflecting, you know, we've been going down to the water reuse meetings down in Southern California, that's what they frequently are. And we hear reports from these different Southern California water districts, and they are trying to grab water from all sources, and they import water. But they're also looking at recycled water just as a cheaper approach, because the imported water is, what we would be doing with the city, purchased water, so that it's not covered by capital expenses, it's just a straight water cost. And so any water that we control and can produce on our own is bound to be cheaper than purchased water. With the point that they seem to be reflecting over and over every year, actually.
Well, and I think the agencies down in Southern California are are cognizant of that stepwise process. So that every year water is allocated based on how much water is available, and so what happens is there are shortfalls for them. And so that is why they've been trying to develop more local water supplies for them. So I think that's a kind of a good, I think, story or something for us to think about, is that we are gonna be kind of doing that kind of same thing with the city water as what Southern California is doing with their import water. And so what happened, I think they've realized that sometimes there's shortcomings, and so they're trying to be resilient with a more, resilient supply that's more reliable with treated, recycled water.
Yeah, and I think you're right, but, what Carla just said, I think is interesting, because I've heard it say out there that they don't have enough water down there, that's why they're doing it, it's like the last resort. And that's not what we heard at the conference, it was that it's actually cheaper, besides being more reliable.
Right.
So that was interesting, because I hear misinformation out there in the community, and otherwise not that.
What they've been sharing with the community down there is also just how important it is to recycle rather, it's part of the general recycling, using less energy, recycled water uses less energy than desal water and so on. And actually even just transporting of importation of water has a cost also, the infrastructure cost. So there's, they're trying to, Southern California's been notorious for their, the way they grabbed and used water. They're trying to be a little more responsible too.
Yeah.
That's what, there's a driving trend in that direction.
You have Senator Hertzberg down there, and now Senator Weiner up here in San Francisco are collaborating on a bill and it goes to exactly what LA is all about. They're trying to go to zero discharge. That's what the mayor's come and said, let's do zero discharge. It's the right thing to do. It's a resource that we can reuse. We can deplete other resources less, streams, groundwater, whatever. So they're promoting,
Yeah,
what's that?
There's a Senate bill called the Local Water Reliability Act, and
Okay.
that's what Ron is talking
Yeah,
about.
Yeah,
so,
but do you know the number of that?
332.
yeah.
So has Soquel and the city kind of explored the possibility of the city slightly overproducing surface water in Soquel, slightly overproducing recycled water, and then in a drought situation, the city might get some recycled water, and then Soquel might get some extra water in what you?
Well, I think we're letting Santa Cruz go down its path. What was in that, that's a good question, because what you see in these other graphs, the modeling graphs, is they, and Melanie, maybe you want to go back, if you would, once you show that. I think it's up, which one are we in? I can't even remember. We're in like Monday nights or something. It would be back in the board packet is what I'm talking about, the modeling results. But we don't have to go there if we don't need to. What the modeling results show is that, well, number one, everybody's done different iterations. So MGA optimized pure water, so draw out a little bit more where you're putting in that area and create more of a uniform wall. And the city showed drastic over drawing down groundwater level, so they did an optimization type thing to a stepwise. And they're still seeing significantly below protective water levels in some of the wells. So there's more to be done, and exactly how it fleshes out, we'll have to see. That's just part of the process. Is that a fair way to describe it?
I think when we're using the groundwater basin as a storage vessel for it, because there's not the storage capacity above ground, with the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act and the sustainability indicators that we have to use as our bench scale kind of metrics of success, the modeling is showing that we're not meeting those,
Yeah,
even
when they
with
go in
like
and
this
try to
excess
pull.
of volume because of the pushing and pulling of the hydrology.
Yeah.
Is that probably?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, even though they lowered their demand projections in the near term, they're not pursuing the Scotts Valley, so they don't have that basin to pull on, at least not right now. So it's a big ask of our community's water basin. I think we'll get there for them, and for the basin sustainability, but it's gonna be a little bit more journey for how they come to that. Okay.
Maybe you have any questions, and then we can go to 3
Do you have a
Oh, I
comment?
do, thank you. Going back to the surface water, and that the amount of transfer was decreased, that was begun by 2 weeks after the intertie was activated by the district on its own to activate the O'Neill well and the Main Street well. And what I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, was it because you had to do that to keep the ammonia waiver or the disinfectant level waiver current because of the problems with the O'Neill Ranch. So it hasn't all been from the request of the city. And I also want to point out that, you know, on this graph, while it's easy to say, no, it just wouldn't work, if you look at the numbers, it would work a fair amount of the time. And so to shut it off completely, I think, Mr. Duncan, I really like that you say we need to keep this on to, in essence, diversify the portfolio, because what if the Pure Water Soquel plant did get built, and it was said this morning it's relatively a small project, and because of the technology and all that, if it were built, could potentially have a lot of problems. I've seen that happen in Cambria, where they had to shut the system down because of problems. So I am encouraged that actually a fair amount of the time water could come through, and I would like to encourage the district to partner with the city of Santa Cruz to help pay for the Graham Hill water treatment plant upgrades. That was why, as you said, the cost per acre foot was so high, because it included all of the upgrade costs for the Graham Hill treatment plant. And if that cost could be shared with the city, that price could come down, albeit you are bound by Prop 218. But I think all things are negotiable. And the city, I think, would possibly extend a research time, a research price. It took 3 of the 5 years just to even get the transfers activated. So extending that would give it a bit more time to go, and even without the Graham Hill treatment plant upgrades, it still shows in many of the models that it could be done 100% of the time. So, and also for those of you, the latest version of the groundwater modeling presented by Mr. Camarantana.
It's been 3 minutes, Becky.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks.
I think before we move on to the Pure Water Soquel, I think I'd like to just share some of the public outreach and customers that kind of have either went to that meeting or have called. I think they do recognize that the smaller volume is something of still interest to us, and they've asked us, are we still pursuing that? And yes, we are. I think that small volume is what Ron is talking about. That is a potential. For the larger volume, and in terms of whether or not it's a replacement project, or we decided to really just only focus on river water, a lot of customers are viewing this as something that's not that reliable. You know, if you were a student or a grade, that's like an F is kind of what they say. That's an F, you know. And well, we're not in school anymore, but you know, in terms of reliability, it is something that the board has to consider.
Well,
Yeah, that water treatment center, the idea of sharing costs came up in a strong cost analysis to see whether it was even worth it.
I don't know that,
It would
it's gonna
go-
cost the same no matter who pays for it.
it does.
It
That's,
would
that's
go,
what I understand.
it would go into the purchase cost. They would roll that into their unit cost of water.
Which is still what it said it was. I think the other way to look at this, and Melanie did a good job, is it's the old risk and consequence situation where if the risk of walking across the street and and getting hit by a car is low, but what's the consequence? Pretty damn high, right? So you're gonna really, only stick with low odds. It's similar here. There, I think if you add up those numbers, it's in the 30% range in the 1500 on the far right. 30% or 35%, whatever the numbers add up to and average out to be, of success, or 70-some% chance of failure. What's the consequence? Seawater intrusion, velocity off. So it's like people buying insurance. The idea of your house catching on fire is relatively low, but the impact, the consequence is pretty huge, so a lot of us take that out. I think this is the same way to view this. Yeah.
I guess glass empty or glass half full, and what is it full with? It could be seawater intrusion.
But it's also such a random year-to-year type of a situation, climate, we just don't know.
Well,
You don't even know if you can plan for that.
And I tell you, I was struck,
You know?
and I'm surprised it didn't get picked up by other people, but at Monday night down there, and tell me if I heard this right for those of us who were there, Gary Fisk, somebody asked, well, a couple things. One of the Sierra Club members asked, so this means it doesn't matter if we were one agency and you could transfer water, which couldn't happen if you were one agency. You still got to go through the legal process, because this is still based on legally being able to transfer the water. He said it doesn't matter. This indicates that, and the answer was yes. But the other thing that Gary Fisk said that really, I mean, y'all were there. Somebody asked, what happens if we have a longer drought, like a 6-year drought? Does anybody remember what he said? I thought his words were, "We are toast." I think he used the word toast, and to me, I was like,
I don't think it was toast, but something like that.
was it? Okay, I actually
I
thought
mean, it was like really bad. This like.
Yeah, I thought he used the word. Could go back and look if it, but that doesn't seem that far out of the realm of possibilities for me. A 6-year drought, and so that's a scary thought.
And personally, I feel much more comfortable about steering water and buying some of their water at different times to rest wells here. If we had a project that provided a continuous barrier on seawater intrusion, I think that makes that project, we'll have to go into that now really quickly because we're running out of time, but it provides an underlying support for sharing water. And so they're moving into a new era, I hope, of water sharing and so on. So,
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, if you want us to kick off the 3-2.
Yeah, I think we should move on
Yeah.
pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Spend a lot of time on 3-1.
But then we
Popular
touched
item.
on
We touched a little bit on
a little
things.
bit.
Well, and I think that was a good segue for Pure Water Soquel, because that is still, nobody should not think that that's not still a sharing and collaborative project. The city of Santa Cruz and the district are collaborating a lot on
Yeah,
the Pure Water Soquel project.
we have been. We've been, like I mentioned, letters I've seen going back many years.
I'm trying to think when the last time this group met. When was it? Was it prior to the EIR certification?
I can't remember.
No,
I
it was-
Prior to cataract surgery, though.
Was it just
I missed the last one.
one? I don't remember.
So the last meeting was February 12th.
February 12th, okay.
So it was
So we
long
did, okay,
time.
so.
It feels like ancient.
Okay, so since February, our project, obviously, we have been working with, defining the project even more, obviously with the Pure Water Soquel EIR that was certified and approved. It was component-based, and so we've now gone through some additional preliminary engineering to identify the project components. And so the next phase of our project really is to go out and complete the preliminary design, and ultimately we're gonna go out for the permitting and construction of the project. Through February and March, the city and district staff were talking a lot about the treatment facilities and the components and where they would be located. So we did land on some preliminary agreements with the city that the tertiary component would be down at Santa Cruz. So that's that membrane step one process of microfiltration would be built down at Santa Cruz, and then the reverse osmosis, the UV light, and the advanced oxidation, the purification process would occur at the Chanticleer site, which is at Chanticleer and Soquel Avenue. And then that purified water would go out to injection wells or seawater intrusion prevention wells. And the sites that have been identified and evaluated in the EIR are the three, Monterey Avenue, Willowbrook Lane, and Cabrillo College Drive.
And you'll have a brine line coming back to Santa Cruz?
From the Chanticleer.
Is it the
site.
same trench or different, two trenches?
We're gonna try to put it in the same trench.
Okay. Wide trench?
Hmm?
A wide
Or
trench?
vertical.
Yeah.
Oh, really? One on top of the other?
Maybe.
Okay.
So we are, right now, a lot of our efforts are on some of the studies and evaluation that's in the Prop 1 planning grant. So we applied for the $2 million planning grant through the state and are working through those activities right now. One of them is an alignment study. So that alignment study hopefully will be available at the end of summer, midsummer. That will show, the analysis that was done on pipelines.
That's part of the $2 million grant money that we received. Okay.
And then we also are doing what we call the basis of design reports, or the preliminary design for the conveyance and for the treatment facilities. Trying to think of what else. Is there anything else on the project? Obviously, Ms. Steinbruner's here. We do have one lawsuit that we have on the project and the EIR. So we're taking the necessary steps. We have a legal team behind us that will be evaluating that. And so that's also going forward with the project. But in terms of the project schedule, even with the lawsuit, we're still able to move forward on things we have. And so we are still going forward with the assumption that the project can still be built and brought online by 2022.
So we're on. That's good.
Any questions on Julia Soquel? Okay, any comments from the public?
I do, thank you, Becky Steinbruner. I'm wondering if you can give an update on the Twin Lakes Church pilot recharge well. And because that was identified by the board as the one of the 3 sites for an injection well.
Not at this time.
Not at this time?
Got 6 minutes left.
Yeah.
All right.
It's not on the agenda per se.
Oh, right. I still want to hit on 23.
Yeah, so
Anything else?
All right.
that was your question?
I would just say that there are 8 causes of action of CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act violations that I am pursuing, and may add a couple more as I amend the petition within the next few days. And I think they're serious, and I'm quite disappointed that the district is just moving forward as if nothing is happening. So I do plan to vigorously pursue this suit, and I'm doing this in interest of public health and safety as a citizen.
Okay. Okay, 3.3.
So 3.3, we wanted to put this item on this standing committee, even though a lot of it is more on the public outreach committee. When the district initiated their long-term roadmap for water sustainability, and the heart of what's on the walls here is the community water plan. We put out the original community water plan in 2015, and we did an update in 2017. And so the board has asked us to create and produce a 2019 update that would give a snapshot of where we are. Kind of, you guys know it because you come to our meetings and we're kind of like in the thick of it. but this would be to disseminate this information out to the public. So a hard copy of our community water plan would be mailed to all of the district customers, and we have handouts for various community events. This is something that the city did and is doing for their water supply update. So it is just to kind of reach out to everybody so that they kind of know.
Is that what it's going on?
This is the city one.
This is the city of Santa Cruz's, and this is ours from 2 years ago. And so what we're gonna be putting in the 2019 is just more of an up-to-date snapshot on where we are with our water supply options, water conservation, and groundwater management.
What are you saying about,
Ours, this is 2017 of
Yeah.
Soquel Creeks, yeah.
about seawater
Desal?
desalination?
So at the last board meeting, we did provide some updated information from Deepwater Desal. And we'll be, the information that we got from them is that they are still in the environmental review process. They have completed most of the studies that they feel fulfill the requirements of the new Ocean Plan Amendment, however, things have been stalled. So we did ask the board, oh, Woody, do you want to talk about the board? Sorry.
No, our time is short, move
Okay.
on.
We did talk to the board about whether or not they wanted to take desalination completely off. At this point, like the city of Santa Cruz, they've kind of tabled desalination. The board opted to still have all of these options still included in the community water plan, but not have such a high of level of information for desalination, because there's kind of, it's done.
It's very shaky.
Yeah.
Right, and we reflect that in the
Yeah.
community water plan, try to be
And there's a-
as genuine as we can, thinking that, at least in this time, this is much smaller, this is just a fraction,
Yeah.
you know, and these two, you know.
I think it's good to have it in there, it's just a matter of, you know, if it's higher or lower on the priority, but
Right.
I think it's good to have it in there, because one never knows what might happen.
Right, right, and you don't wanna give the false, that we're putting as much info,
No,
time
but
on
it's
it.
good to have it in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, no, the basic thing is, we haven't given up on it.
Yeah.
It's just been, there's no new information or nothing to.
No way to move forward.
No way to
for
move
us.
forward.
Yeah.
Just, and to state that.
At the
but-
moment, anyhow.
But it's
Exactly.
just good to have it there.
Yeah, you don't wanna eliminate an option probably until you're sure.
So we will be bringing a draft progress update to the board at the end of May. And then we're hoping to have that distributed out to the customers shortly after that.
Somebody, comments, suggestions on that?
No, I think just having it in the plan, the desal component is just good to have it there, and, you know, it may be minimized, but it's still, I think it's a possibility.
Possibility, we still have some customers who advocate for that.
Yeah, and so I think it's just good to have it, you know, placeholder there. If everything else falls apart.
Yeah.
You just don't want it to overshadow
Yeah.
Yeah,
everything in this
and
community.
give a false
No, but I
impression.
think, you know, it's,
There's a lot of information on water transfers and pure water Soquel.
Yeah.
It's, you don't wanna flood the, which is basically a small
yeah.
pamphlet. You really need to get some important information out, because things are moving ahead on 2 different projects.
And I think those probably be the 2 major points of discussion, politically, et cetera. you know.
So I think that was just, it's a question of balance.
So we got like 2 minutes,
Okay.
just trying to
So-
be taskmaster.
Yes, okay, what is it? Oh, any reports or information from committee members, anything? I don't know, that's almost oral communication, so. And then what, item 3.5 is the standing committee schedule change, and I'm ready to fold on that one.
Well,
I
yeah, I
haven't
mean,
done
that was,
anything more on it either.
for our new committee member, Rochelle, she had a work
I
schedule.
can make those other hours.
Oh,
You
Those are
can?
my schedules switched.
So,
Oh, okay.
but what I'm gonna suggest is maybe getting some times, but until you have your other committee member from the board on here,
Yeah.
because her schedule may help,
Preclude.
preclude
So would
or
you want to
modify.
do it maybe a little later, something like that?
Well, that was the idea, since she,
She has like a real
late
job.
last fall, she took on a new job in
Uh-huh.
Monterey. south, full-time, and so she's been trying to, she can leave early and this and that, but she's having a hard time
She
getting,
usually gets to the
making
board
all
meetings just barely on time,
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
straight from there.
And that's 6 o'clock,
Yeah.
so.
If we could do 4:30, would that be workable for people, I mean, or uncomfortable?
That's fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
4:30,
fine.
so think about that.
And then we got staff to make potential issues too, but, okay, just to get a feel, so if we come back with this item,
Yeah, that might help a lot.
yeah. Okay.
And you can just update us if there's a change.
Yeah.
Send us an email.
Okay.
Same day.
Yeah. I think we'd probably, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, so, yeah, then I think the other member is Bruce Daniels, and he's more flexible or not, the schedule. I think that's why he's the alternate now.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Just, Alrighty, are there any other comments? Okay.
Are you going to discuss the May 2nd event at the downtown library?
May 2nd?
You talked about that with Mr. Duncan and Bruce Daniels giving a presentation.
The outreach, your science.
I don't think we're gonna talk about
It's not
that.
related to this meeting.
It's an event that's scheduled though, right? You talked about it this morning?
Wait, that's a
I thought
public
it was
outreach
postponed. I
committee?
thought it was postponed.
Oh,
I don't know exactly sure.
Yeah, well, we can talk about it.
Well-
I don't know I don't know the.
Let's not talk about it, it's not on
Okay.
the agenda, I'm not
Related to
comfortable.
this meeting.
I know.
Vine
We'll have to
mentioned
still
it.
wait
I thought it would
until
be one of the
next,
committee
regularly
reports or
scheduled
staff
board
reports.
meeting for that, which will be in a
Oh, we're
couple
at
weeks.
3.5.
Pardon?
We're on item 3.5.
Yeah,
Oh,
now moving to,
And
3.6.
Future items to discuss.
Yeah, future
Any-
events of 3.6.
Anything we missed that we should discuss the next time?
you can always send us ideas, please do, I know some of you do.
Actually,
All of you do, so thank you.
I think one thing worth thinking about long-term is if the city of Santa Cruz, has slight capacity from surface water treatment plant, and if the Soquel Creek has slight extra capacity for recycled water, maybe discussing water transfers between the two agencies when there's a drought year and a not a drought year. I think that's a good idea to think about and
Mhm.
possibly
Mhm.
pursue with the city. Because I think administratively, Soquel Creek is in charge of one facility and the city's in charge of the other, and you balance water out long-term. I think that's a good, because they're different sources. And I
Mhm.
think that would be beneficial to both agencies.
Water infrastructure, okay, thank you, Kim.
Well, the modeling, it's the modeling of the basin
Yeah, that'll help a lot, actually.
advances, that'll give us a lot more
Yeah, and I think
information
through-
on how that
I
could
think-
possibly
Yeah.
work. At the moment, it seems like it's
I think though, it's
only works if we
long-term,
have a pure water.
that might
supply.
help both agencies, especially through the basin actually. And I think you have the other agency now who's gonna be working on that, so I think that's a perfect avenue for that other agency to be working with both you and the city.
Mm-hmm, oh, good point.
I'm talking about what's being done already, at the next meeting maybe.
Yeah.
And then maybe an update on your grant application,
Okay,
and maybe something about the Cabrillo well.
And the strange thing is on your grant application, sometimes, for example, if you did have a interchange agreement between the city and you, sometimes your grant application goes up higher.
Like
If you're
collaboration.
with collaboration through a third agency, which you actually have, if, this balances out the drought years and the wet years and the use of recycled water. So that may actually increase your odds on a grant application if you have that concept in there. Because I remember when I was applying for grants, if you did collaborate, especially with 2 or 3 agencies, and it was part of the official plan, that your odds on the application went up astronomically.
Mhm. Yeah, it's the same, they're in our grants now. the
Yeah,
city of
but
Santa
if
Cruz
you
and
actually
town.
sort of had a formal thought or agreement, and just a concept even, that during droughts, might give them a little extra water from your wastewater plant, and during wet years, they might give you a little extra water from their surface water sources. And then that would balance the basin, which is the third agency, I think just a simple statement like that between the three agencies that they all agreed with on a sort of a philosophical level, without a lot of detail, I think that would help your grant application enormously. I could be wrong.
I'm hopeful on a philosophical level at this point that would all work out.
I think philosophically, I don't think anybody'd have any problems with that, but, you know, the devil's always in the details. But I do think on a grant application, that's gonna further your grant application a lot.
Thank you. Well, I want to be true to the agenda. I know it's a little bit past 5.
Sure.
Any closing remarks?
I just want to make sure I got the notes. What time did you get here, so I can put that in our summary? Oh, you got that, Chris?
409.
4:09. Oh, I didn't know you were doing it. Oh, thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.